The Lotus Sutra, Chapter 27, The Previous Life of King Wonderfully-Adorned. At that time, the Buddha addressed the Great Assembly. Long ago, in a previous age, innumerable, unlimited, and inconceivably countless eons ago, there was a Buddha named Wisdom Blessed by the King of Constellations, called the Sound of Thunder in the Clouds, Tathagata, an Arhat, full Buddha, whose land was named Adorned with Light, and whose eon was named Seen with Joy. Under the Dharma of that Buddha, there was a king named Wonderfully-Adorned. The wife of that king was called Pure Virtue, and there were two sons, one named Pure Treasury, the other named Pure Eyes. Those two sons had great divine powers, merit, virtue, and wisdom. For a long time they had followed the way of bodhisattva practice, that is, the practice of generosity, the practice of morality, the practice of patience, the practice of perseverance, the practice of meditation, the practice of wisdom, the practice of skillful means, kindness, compassion, joy, impartiality, and the 37 kinds of aids to the way. All of these they thoroughly mastered. They had also attained the bodhisattva concentrations, the pure concentration, the sun, stars, and constellations concentration, the pure light concentration, the pure color concentration, the pure illumination concentration, the long adornment concentration, and the concentration of the treasury of great dignity and virtue. They had thoroughly mastered these concentrations. Then that Buddha, wanting to guide King Wonderfully-Adorned and having compassion for the living, taught this Dharma Flower Sutra. Meanwhile, the two sons, Pure Treasury and Pure Eyes, went to their mother and, putting their 10 fingers and palms together, said to her, "We beg you, Mother, to go and visit Wisdom Blessed by the King of Constellations, called the Sound of Thunder in the Clouds Buddha. We also would wait on, associate with, make offerings to, and worship him. Why? Because this Buddha is teaching the Dharma Flower Sutra among the multitudes of human and heavenly beings, and we ought to hear and receive it." The mother replied to her sons, "Your father has faith in a non-Buddhist way, deeply attached to Brahman teachings. You should go and talk to your father so that he may participate and go with you." Pure Treasury and Pure Eyes, putting their 10 fingers and palms together, said to their mother, "We are sons of the Dharma King, yet we were born in this home of wrong views." The mother said to her sons, "You should be concerned about your father, and show him some divine marvels, so that when he sees them, his mind will become clear, and he will permit us to go to the Buddha." Because they were concerned about their father, the two sons leapt up into the air to the height of 7 tala trees, and performed many kinds of divine marvels, walking, standing, sitting, and lying down in the air, emitting water from the upper part of their bodies and fire from the lower, or emitting water from the lower and fire from the upper, enlarging themselves until they filled the sky and then becoming small again, or making themselves small and then appearing large again, vanishing from the air and suddenly appearing on the ground, going into the ground as though it were water, walking on water as though it were the ground. By showing various divine marvels like this, they led their father, the king, to cleanse his mind for faith and understanding. When their father saw his sons with such divine powers, which he had never experienced before, he was overjoyed, and with palms together greeted his sons, saying, "Who is your teacher? Whose disciples are you?" The two sons replied, "Great king, wisdom blessed by the king of constellations called the sound of thunder in the clouds Buddha, who is now under the Bodhi tree of 7 precious materials, seated on the Dharma seat among the human and heavenly beings of all the worlds, is teaching the Dharma Flower Sutra everywhere. He is our teacher. We are his disciples." The father then said to his sons, "Now I too would like to go to see your teacher. Let us go together." With this, the two sons descended from the air, went to their mother, and with palms together said to her, "Our father, the king, has now come to believe and understand, and has been able to set his mind on supreme awakening. We have done the Buddha's work for our father's sake. Please, mother, allow us to leave home and pursue the way under the Buddha." Then the two sons, wanting to restate their intention, spoke to their mother in verse. "Please, mother, permit us to leave home and become mendicants. Meeting a Buddha is very difficult, and we would be followers of this Buddha. Rare as the blossoms of the Udumbara are, even harder is it to meet a Buddha, and it is hard to get rid of difficulties. Please allow us to leave home." Then the mother said, "I will allow you to leave home. Why? Because it is difficult to meet a Buddha." With this, the two sons said to their parents, "Good, father and mother, we beg you in time to go to wisdom blessed by the king of constellations, called the sound of thunder in the clouds Buddha, approach him and make offerings to him. Why? Because a Buddha is as difficult to meet as an Udumbara flower, or as a one-eyed tortoise meeting the hole in a floating log. But we, being richly blessed from the past, have been born at a time when we could encounter the Buddha Dharma. Therefore, father and mother, you should listen to us and allow us to leave home. Why? Because Buddhas are difficult to meet, and it is difficult to find the right time as well." At that time, all the 84,000 women in the rear palace of King Wonderfully-Adorned became capable of receiving and embracing this Dharma Flower Sutra. Pure Eyes Bodhisattva had long ago mastered the Dharma Flower concentration, and Pure Treasury Bodhisattva had mastered the concentration of freedom from evil levels of existence innumerable hundreds of thousands of billions of eons ago. This was because he wanted to lead all the living away from the evil levels of existence. The wife of that king had attained the Buddha's assembly concentration and knew the secret resources of Buddhas. Her two sons, using their powers of skillful means, skillfully transformed their father, enabling him to have faith in, to understand, and to love and delight in the Buddha Dharma. Then King Wonderfully-Adorned, accompanied by his ministers and followers, Queen Pure Virtue, accompanied by the ladies and followers from the rear palace, and the king's two sons, accompanied by 42,000 people, set out together to visit the Buddha. Arriving, they prostrated themselves at his feet, circled around the Buddha 3 times, and then withdrew to one side. Then that Buddha taught the Dharma for the sake of the king, demonstrating and teaching it to him, enriching him and bringing him joy. The king was joyous with delight. Then King Wonderfully-Adorned and his queen removed necklaces of pearls worth hundreds of thousands from their necks and tossed them above the Buddha. In the sky they were transformed into a 4-columned jeweled platform. On the platform was a large jeweled couch with hundreds of billions of heavenly coverings. Sitting cross-legged on them was the Buddha, emitting a great light. Then King Wonderfully-Adorned thought to himself, "The Buddha's body is rare, dignified, and extraordinary, in form most subtle and wonderful." Then wisdom blessed by the King of Constellations, called the Sound of Thunder in the Clouds Buddha, said to the four groups, "Do you see this King wonderfully adorned standing before me with his palms together? This king, having been a monk under my Dharma, and diligently studying and putting into practice the Dharma that helps one along the Buddha way, will become a Buddha named Sal Tree King. His land will be named Great Light, and his eon named Great High King. This Buddha, Sal Tree King, will have countless bodhisattvas and countless Shravakas. His land will be level and smooth. Such will be his blessings." The king immediately turned over his land to his younger brother, and, together with his queen and 2 sons and all their followings, gave up his home and practiced the way under the Dharma of that Buddha. Having left his home, for 84,000 years, the king was always dutiful and diligent in practicing the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra. And after these years had passed, he attained the concentration of being adorned with all the pure blessings. Then he rose in the air to a height of 7 tala trees and said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, these 2 sons of mine have already done the work of the Buddha by their divine transformations, changing my wrong views, enabling me to dwell at peace in the Buddha Dharma, and allowing me to see the world-honored one. These 2 sons are my good friends. They wanted to awaken the roots of goodness from my previous lives, bringing abundant benefits to me. That is why they were born into my family." Then wisdom blessed by the King of Constellations, called the Sound of Thunder in the Clouds Buddha, said to King Wonderfully-Adorned, that's right, it is just as you say. By planting roots of goodness, any good son or good daughter will have good friends in life after life, and these good friends will be able to do the Buddha's work, demonstrating and teaching the Dharma, enriching and bringing joy to others, enabling them to enter supreme awakening. Great King, you should understand that a good friend is the great cause and condition by which one is transformed, led to see the Buddha, and aroused to seek supreme awakening. Great King, do you see these 2 sons? These 2 sons have already made offerings to as many Buddhas as 65 hundreds of billions of myriads of sands of the Ganges, associating with and revering them. In the presence of those Buddhas, they have received and embraced the Dharma Flower Sutra, having compassion for living beings with wrong views and enabling them to live with right views. King Wonderfully-Adorned then came down from the air and said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, a Tathagata is extremely rare. Because of his blessings and wisdom, the knob on the top of his head shines brilliantly. His eyes are long, wide, and deep blue. The tuft of hair between his eyebrows is as white as a bright moon. His teeth are white, even, close together, and always shining. His lips are red, and as beautiful as bimba fruit." When King Wonderfully-Adorned had praised that Buddha's countless hundreds of thousands of billions of blessings in this way, putting his palms together before the Tathagata in complete devotion, he spoke to that Buddha once again, saying, "World-honored one, this is unprecedented. The Dharma of the Tathagata is completely full of inconceivable and wonderful blessings. The practice of his teachings and precepts will bring peace and comfort and good feelings. From this day forward, I will no longer follow my own whims, nor will I allow myself wrong views, pride or arrogance, anger, or any other evil states." Having spoken these words, he bowed to the Buddha and left. The Buddha said to the great assembly, "What do you think? Is this King Wonderfully Adorned unknown to you? He is the present Bodhisattva flower virtue. The Queen Pure Virtue is the Bodhisattva, marks of shining adornment, who is now in the presence of the Buddha. Out of mercy for King Wonderfully Adorned and his people, she was born among them. The two sons of the present Medicine King Bodhisattva and Superior Medicine Bodhisattva. These Bodhisattvas, Medicine King and Superior Medicine, have already attained great blessings, and under countless hundreds of thousands of billions of Buddhas have planted roots of virtue and attained good blessings beyond conception. If there is anyone who is acquainted with the names of these two Bodhisattvas, human and heavenly beings in all the worlds should worship them." When the Buddha taught this chapter, The Previous Life of King Wonderfully Adorned, 84,000 people separated themselves from uncleanliness and acquired pure Dharma eyes for seeing all things.